Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Regina Andrew. Thank you for making some time for us. We are conducting these fireside chat series. They're meant to be intimate conversations touching on a number of subjects. And we are recording all these, so if you miss anything, you do have the ability to watch them afterwards on our YouTube station and take in all that content. If it's your first time to our space, welcome. There's a number of things taking place. We also have these scanner systems that will allow you to actually document your visit through, so you can scan all the items, add them to a wish list, and it's very easy then to proceed with creating an order, which we like those. I wanted to also add that we have a fun little contest happening thanks to our friends at Caesarstone. So you can scan this little QR code. They're all around the showroom and enter to win. Each day we're giving away a $1,000 credit towards a Caesarstone slab and a $500 gift card to Regina Andrew. So each day, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then after this, there's cocktails. So cocktails and some light bites. So stick around for that. It'll be fun. I am really excited to this topic is kind of near and dear to my heart just based on having a 14-year-old daughter. So I think there's a lot of things that kind of touch on this. But I'm going to introduce Jen Smiga. Thank you, Jen. Jen is with the Ultraviolet Agency, does a lot of work in the design industry with a number of design firms and designers, is based in New Jersey, and has conducted a number of market talks, all of which kind of touch on a number of subjects. So Jen, I'm going to let you introduce your guests, and we'll go from there. So,
Hello. Hi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I know there's a lot happening here. So, how many of you are local? Like, same state? There we go. All right. Well, thank you. And for those of you who took a long way to get here, we appreciate you coming here and taking a part of the day with us. Let me introduce our guests here today. What we're going to be talking about is something that might be really relevant to you or someone you know, and it's next-gen powerhouses, designers leading with vision, not just years. Something that I think we go to a lot of talks and we hear from a lot of people that have a lot of experience that have been in the industry for many years, and their voices and their experience is really important. But hopefully this is also relatable to you as someone who may not have the years behind them. So hopefully you learn a lot today. First, here we have Jaclyn Isaac, who's the founder of Donnie Douglas. She brings practical insights from launching and scaling her own firm and her vintage antiques online and retail business, which right near me in Avon, New Jersey. And she came to design from pharmaceutical advertising. Hello, hello. No design degree, just pure grit and real world learning. I would like to say there's design studies in there. Yeah, there's studies, there's work. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Maybe. And then we have Jennifer Hutton, the principal designer and creative director of Grau Design Studio, who's building her practice while earning industry recognition. She has taught at the Villa Marie College, and Jennifer has not only one, but two interior design degrees, and she got her feet wet through working at luxury design-built firms. So thank you both. Thank you both for being here. Thank you for the jet lag and swinging by from work. So they both have very different backgrounds, but what's really fascinating is that they have a lot of the similar challenges. And so hopefully there's a lot of challenges that you can relate to and that you'll be able to take back some feedback from today and bring it to your lives. So we're going to talk about something called imposter syndrome, right? Imposter syndrome and confidence, right? I'm 40 plus, and I would say I still have this. I think at every age we have this, but specifically at your age, I think it hits hard, right? So, Jaclyn, you started calling yourself a decorator instead of designer, right? Because said you didn't want to step on anyone's toes. Walk us through that journey and when that shift happened when you started saying, I'm a designer.
Yeah. Am I on? Yes. Okay. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And if you guys have any questions, I'm an open book. We're Jersey girls, so we don't know how to stop talking.
We'll stop you.
I started my company about, I think, 8 years ago at this point, and the original name was Downtown Decorators. And I listened to this podcast very literally, and it was like, call your company, what you do, and where you do it. So I lived in downtown Jersey City, and I was decorating. I had major problems with calling myself a designer because I didn't have a degree. So I was a decorator for a long time, but I think how I grew kind of out of that and into my own confidence around this was doing the work. I would have clients call me back after we did a living room or a dining room, and they would be like, hey, can you work on our bathroom? Can you do a kitchen for us? And I have a problem saying no. So everything was, yeah, no problem. And I think just building your own confidence and actually doing the work, I could finally sit here and say, I could be in a room and say, I know what I'm doing. And it didn't necessarily have to come from a design degree. It came from just pure experience. So that's how I moved myself out of that.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that experience in a little bit too. Jennifer, you have all the formal education, the work experience, but yet you still talk about imposter syndrome in your 30s. Can you share us a little bit about when that creeps in?
Yeah, it's something that happens, in the middle of the night and sometimes in the middle of a project. But it's real. It's something that you struggle with throughout the majority of your career, for the most part. And the way you get through it is really just, again, by what Jaclyn said, doing the work, owning your product, your finished product, owning the project, and being able to relate to clients. Hey, I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. And it just, at the end of the day, makes you feel a little bit more confident in yourself that you've created a number of projects. You have built this beautiful portfolio, and you can always refer back to that when it becomes an issue and when you get that kind of fraudulent doubt in the back of your mind. But hey, you know what you've got. You've got a good foundation, and you just build on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the work you both do, it's just pictures, words. I speak 1,000 words. Like when you look at their projects, it speaks for itself. And I think you all hopefully will feel at some point that really helps move you and galvanizes your careers. Now I want to talk about confidence and commanding fair compensation, right? Numbers. I think when we talk about money, for some people, they get really nervous, right? Neil, one of the reasons this talk came up is he said Regina and himself were really disheartened when they would speak to some designers and people that were applying for positions. The women would kind of negotiate before they were even asked to negotiate. So that really inspired this talk. So let's talk about that. Jennifer, the money conversation. I feel like you're a straight shooter. We've worked together for a couple of months now. And so tell me a little bit about when you're with a client and you're sitting down with someone who maybe is an empty nester now, looking to build and work on their second home, and then you have to sit down and negotiate that money. Where do you build that confidence? Where does that confidence come from to talk about the money and the negotiation?
Normally, that confidence comes from showing them your previous work and showing them reviews and having those conversations like, I've done X, Y, and Z. I can produce this for you. And it's a really fine balance between knowing your worth and knowing your shit a little bit, being able to use the right terminology, being able to foresee things that the client may not foresee down the road. So having those honest conversations with them and explaining, I've been through this before. Here's what you can expect, and that's why I'm charging whatever it is, or bringing this to the table for you. So I'm worth this. Just really explaining to them those differences that set you apart from the next designer and why why those differences should allow you to be fairly compensated.
I think it's like being proactive, right? Like laying all that on the table so that there is no negotiation, right? You're like, this is my work, this is my experience that I'm bringing to you. And I loved what you said about telling them something that like your familiarity with construction and that process, and that if they don't hire you, they may screw up. Like give that sense of that you're the right person for the job. Right?
Absolutely.
Jaclyn, you have multiple revenue streams, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. You have your design firm, your vintage and antiques business, your warehouse. You just come back from Italy with more shopping. I keep telling everybody, she was in Italy. How do you price your services and products in a way that reflects your value? Talk a little bit about that. And when you show up in these, like at Round Top or in these places, and you, is there ever, are you ever kind of overlooked? Or is there this sense where she's, not going to know not going to know her business or her work?
Yeah. I have a control problem, and I like to be at the origin of everything that I identify as a problem. So Jen has kind of listed a couple of things that I'm now a part of. So my interior design business, when I started, my background is actually in advertising project management. So I worked with super high-end pharmaceutical executives, the CEOs of Genzyme and Pfizer, directly in a global environment. And these people do not mess around. They come to events globally, and we were putting together some really high-end, presentations and things where things really had to be, like, we had to be on the ball. And I took that experience into interior design, where project management is super important. So on the warehousing side, we were having a lot of issues. And if you're new to interior design, I would encourage you while you're here, especially, Regina, Andrew, you guys should be opening trade accounts and controlling your pricing. That's kind of like first and foremost. But you're also most of the time shipping your goods that you're purchasing from these retailers to receivers. And they're supposed to be opening boxes and checking for damages. And my receivers at some point got really lazy, and they were coming to our job site and our install days, and boxes were closed, meaning no one was checking anything. And I was paying a lot of money a month, and I was paying these guys per piece to check things. And then I was having to tell the clients, like, hey, these things are actually broken, when they were also paying those fees. So I got pissed off and opened my own warehouse, and now we take everything in, and I am now the controller of that. So, in terms of the fees that are charged for there, I do a lot of market research just by talking to my fellow interior designers. I'm a big believer in community, so I leech myself onto as many people that will take me in as possible, and I ask a lot of questions. How are you charging? What are you doing for this particular part of your business? And just being able to find people who will openly talk about that was really helpful. For the receiving and warehouse stuff, it was really just a matter of, like, I knew what I was being charged, so that was easy. The vintage and antique stuff, I had one person tell me something really smart, which was 2 times is a hobby, 3 times is a business. So for me, with the vintage and antique stuff, and I think with anything, right? Some of you may see that you have different tiers of pricing when you go to some of these retailers. It's important to know, if you have a showroom, how much money are you going to be saving, or how much more can you mark that product up? So I think it's just a matter of educating ourselves on what everyone's charging, what everyone's doing, and decide for yourself, how do you want to incorporate that financially into your own business? So, data.
Yeah, it really sounds like, again, the experience, asking a lot of questions and taking it all in, right? And taking risks. Like, it sounds like your background's in the construction, kitchen and bath. Like, these are industries where you need to pay attention. You need to be, dotting all your I's and crossing your T's, or it's going to be a very expensive mistake, right? So learning them early and then keeping that knowledge there. I also think the pharma background and the construction background, again, you walk in a room, you need to own it. You need to have no fear, right? And that really helps, I think, in what you all do when you're talking to a client, right? Business expansion and risk taking. We're going to talk a little bit of that right now. Jennifer, you have a showroom, right, in Durham with curated brands, and you're building community events. Talk about the decision to invest in a studio, and how did that change how your clients perceived you?
The studio was, if nothing, a labor of love. It was the best thing we could have done for the business, and it really shows your clients that you're invested in them too. You're invested in their project enough to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to bring product into the showroom for people to sit on and touch and feel, and cabinets to open, and countertops to run their hand across. There's so many opportunities for clients to see things in person as you're explaining why this is the best answer for their project, and it really shows that, if you can put forth that money, then so can they.
Have any of you follow Emery Barton on Instagram, the designer? Please do. She touches everything. The tactile thing is real. Like, every video, she gets so many likes because she touches her hand across the countertop. Like, it's really important to have that place. Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. I mean, leathered countertops, for example,
Yeah.
when the light hits them just right and you can run your hand across it, that's an example of an experience for somebody. It's an experiential thing. It's not just a, pretty look and there's a picture. It's, you're living this. You're taking a moment in time and saying, how is this going to feel in my own house? How is this going to appear to me at home? So
Now, if someone doesn't have the funds or the support to open a showroom or a studio, what would your recommendations be for bringing material to the client to really give them that experience, or what's the solution?
start small, find showrooms, find vendors and products that will support you in whatever way meets your needs. Let those showrooms meet you where you are. So if that's a trunk case of samples that you can bring to a client's house to try to give them that same pseudo experience, that's going to do wonders for your business as a whole, and allow them some sort of semblance of, hey, this is something I can envision in my own space. And that really goes a long way with people to show that you're investing their time and energy and resources into those same products.
Now we're going to talk about navigating construction, improving your worth on the construction site. How many of you in this room work with a construction team or a builder or contractors that you have good relationships with? If you don't, I think these two are going to tell you something to investigate. Jaclyn, we're going to start with you here. You have done some pretty massive historic home renovations in New Jersey, which is very expensive to do anything. Someone who's just trying to renovate a kitchen right now. So tell us about how that influenced your work, why making mistakes on your own dime before your clients was important. You brought that up to me, and I thought that was pretty important. Just tell me about that experience.
Yeah, I think not having a formal background and not working for anybody else, I didn't really have a choice, right? I can't really enter into a massive construction project with somebody else and be like, sure, no problem, give me $500,000. I know what I'm doing. So a lot of this design business and what I'm doing was born of just my own passions. And a lot of that was historic renovations. Where we're in New Jersey just has a lot of historic home inventory. So what I would say is, like, we've never used a bank loan. We never had a construction loan. We were always doing things in cash. So what I would say is my biggest learning and probably biggest mistakes were always due to communication. Men and women, right? Like, on a basic level, we have issues communicating, let alone on things around large financial decisions or the process by which something needs to be tiled or how I wanted certain things. And I was also working in a space where I wasn't doing drawings. I didn't really have formal project plans. I would show him or her a picture of, a bathroom that I kind of sort of wanted. And this was very early in my career. And what I realized
Who's
was...
him?
Who's him? Yeah. What do you mean?
My
contract?
Yeah. So this is your contractor.
Like 75.
Yeah. So you had, so over time, you've had different partners.
Yeah,
and people.
I work with one guy specifically now, Matt from Woodpole Construction.
So you found your, I know,
I
another.
think we all end up through the work finding our partners, right? That understand how we work. But basically, I found that the majority of issues were always based around communication. I think personally, you can never over communicate. You can never cover your ass enough. There are always times where someone's going to sit here and say that one particular communication didn't necessarily say this one tiny small thing, and then you find yourself thinking, well, what's the point? I gave you drawings, I gave you everything else, and a lot of times people just want to throw you under the bus. They want to protect their own reputation. So my advice to anybody kind of entering into those is just like, make sure that your communications, you're documenting project notes, you're sending recaps. I know it's annoying. There's AI note takers that you can add to every single meeting you have. Like, download those and just make sure that you are sending that to everybody. And if somebody says to you, I don't need to be CC'd on that communication, or I don't need that email, too bad. Like, they're getting it. And that's that.
Jennifer, do you have any tip? No, it's true. I mean, covering your butt is like a real thing, right? There's always someone will say, I didn't get that, I didn't see that. And even people that you work closely with that always do a good job, there may always be that time. So Jennifer, do you want to add to that? Is there?
Yeah, don't leave room for interpretation. Absolutely document everything. We have specific project management software that has thread-based categories. So furniture, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, countertops, go through and put all of those recap notes in there and make sure that everything is time-stamped. You have photos, you have drawings, you have every documentation piece that you need. God forbid there's a lawsuit down the road or there's something that comes up, some major problem. You've got your ass covered for that. And so you can never over-communicate. You can never document too much. And in that same sense, it serves as, portfolio additions. Like, this is why we're worth this. This is the time that we spend doing all of these notes. So, it adds value to your hourly rate that you guys don't have to think about this as clients. I've got that taken care of on your behalf.
Speaking of covering your butt, on the construction site, is there maybe I wish I knew that before I did that situation that you can share with everyone? Like, you are on a construction site, something happened, you wish you never did that again.
I think insurance is a big. I wouldn't necessarily say it's something I would never do again, or a situation that thank God, there's not enough
That you
one
will
here
always do.
that
Yeah.
I've ever gotten into. But I think it depends on your state. But I've spoken to a couple of construction attorneys, and we had a panel about construction, women in construction.
Yeah, fluent in construction. Yep, that was
Yeah.
it was a big talk. The
There was a lot of
legalities.
people there. And we specifically talked about, in California versus New Jersey versus wherever you are, just selecting a plumbing fixture. If something goes wrong and a plumber is unlicensed, installs it incorrectly, and now you have massive water damage in a client's home, you could or could not potentially be named in a lawsuit. So things like that, like just getting familiar, and this is probably more construction oriented, but you may specify a wallpaper, and that wallpaper is, I don't know. I don't actually even know what can go wrong with the wallpaper. But regardless, if you're the specifier, you could be held liable for certain things. So for us in the historic renovations, I was always concerned about structure. We've always over framed things, or we'll add in a steel beam where we may not need one. That is just another instance of covering your butt and making sure that you've got, you've checked the box. So I would encourage you guys, if you're just starting your business, or even if you're not just starting your business, talk to a construction attorney if you are actually working in a construction environment and you're specifying anything other than decorative objects. So
Is this
plumbing
what we look
fixtures
up?
and lighting.
Construction attorney? Like what do we?
Yeah, you can look up somebody that's specific. But I also feel like there's a lot of interior design lawyers, or specific interior designer lawyers that are specific to interior designers that you could find pretty easily through communities. So,
Jen, besides insurance, tell us a little bit about, is there maybe something that you learned on the site at Grau Building that you would always do in the future, or if you want to tell us some terrible story that we can all, feel bad for you about, please do share that.
The one that comes to mind is countertops. Check your countertop drawings. Check those sink centers. Check where faucet holes are placed, because those are really expensive slabs, especially when they're marble that's imported from Brazil. Or, there's a million things that can go wrong. And once holes are drilled in the wrong spot, they're permanent. So be sure to check all of those little tiny details, even if it is not your responsibility because you're not the one fabricating those products. It is your responsibility to make sure that it is going in per your drawings, per your vision. So that's just one thing that comes to mind immediately. It's an expensive mistake to make. You don't want to do that.
The bookmarking, the bookmark edge, the marble slabs that do not go in correctly, and then that pattern that your client said must be like that doesn't go in like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
quarter-inch makes a big difference on countertops.
I think that's
Six,
a
7 inch.
great tip. All the things, the surfaces, the flooring, the lighting, all the things that can make a big difference that people had a lot of say in when they worked with you, right, in their mood boards and specifying. Business expansion and risk taking, right? You went from hating receivers. I don't know. Is there a club? These poor receivers. I feel so bad for them. Don't feel bad for them. They weren't doing their job. Darn it. They did not do their job. So you open your own warehouse in Avon, in New Jersey, on the beach. Now, the exciting part, for some of you who may not know about the Jersey Shore, we're getting something called Netflix is coming to Monmouth County in New Jersey, a massive property that they're taking over. And this businesswoman right here is now manifesting and actually setting up a business to provide for them. So tell us a little bit about that. I just said a whole lot, but I want to hear it from you. Tell us about the next stage, or how you've made a career and a business out of antiquing.
I think it's born out of this fear of staying profitable and making sure that I can do this for a long time. I think I've gotten to a point in my career that's known as the 7-year itch, where you're either gonna jump ship and do something totally different because something doesn't feel like it's working, or you're expanding and moving into something else. For me, I just have had this feeling of there's other things that I could be doing. And so I've been trying really hard to make sure that the stuff that I'm passionate about and getting into, is there a way to make them profitable? So the warehousing thing was just born of the fact that it had to happen, but there's something else that I'm working on that you don't even know about. That would be an extension.
Can they know about it?
No,
they can't know about it.
They'll know about it maybe in a year. But it's my constant need for creating. And I think many of us are in the position where we are creative souls, but at the end of the day, like we've got to make money. So how can I continue to do what I love, which is, going to Italy and buying antiques and, shopping flea markets, and like, how can I make that another part of my business? So it just feels fresh and stays fresh. So, but I also feel like a lot of that could go sideways if you lose focus on your primary source of income. So it's a balance of making sure that I've stayed fresh and wanting to continue to work in this business because I think it's amazing, but also making sure that it stays profitable and there's something to come back to in, the next year. So.
And tell me a little bit about, like, you both, again, the showroom, the antiquing, the warehouse, the first month or two of this work. Tell me a little bit about, like, what that took, who was involved, who was the right hand.
Yeah, so the showroom, I was personally doing the demo and helping with some of the framing. There were a couple of weeks in January of 2024 where I just wanted to die at the end of the day. It was a grueling 8 hours, but I was there being involved and understanding why certain things needed to go in a certain way and talking to my site supers who were helping me out through the project. So it was like I said, a labor of love, but it was a long process. And, by the time you get to the end of it, you can see all of the tears and blood and sweat that went into that. And it really feels like something that is very much your own. So it was great.
Jennifer, tell me a little bit what an average day there is like today, now.
That varies from day to day, but for the most part, it's a mixture of site visits meets, office work, drawings, and every now and then there's a walk-in that we'll stroll through. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's never boring. That's to say the least, but it's a great day every day.
Nice. Shows you love what you do, right? So we're all loving, we want to figure out how to keep doing what we do and love.
What I do.
We're in Regina Andrew, right? This is a brand. We all love everything that they have in here, right? We want everything, and we want to work with them, and that brings us to brand partnerships and negotiations. So both of you are working on those and working with companies. Jaclyn, Round Top, which makes total sense for you, of course, and now a relationship with Crystal Rama. Without getting too in the weeds, can you share how you approached the negotiation and what made it happen?
Yeah, sorry. So just to clarify,
We have
detail,
two.
Round Top is an antiques market in Texas that I go to every year. I talk about it a lot on Instagram, and that's a little bit separate from Rama, which is a lighting brand here. Rama invited me to be what's called a tastemaker. So it's like part of their marketing program. Essentially, there's a handful of us designers that every year we kind of get to weigh in on designs and weigh in on what they're doing and invite more of our community of designers like you guys into their showrooms and events and things and so forth. So I was asked to blog about my latest trip to Round Top, Texas. If you like vintage and antiques, I'm just going to say you really need to go. It's an experience, and we could talk about that after. The brand partnerships, I would say, for those of you that are coming to market, it's kind of like step one. It's introducing yourselves to brands that are here. The marketing directors are here. The CEOs are here. Like, everybody's here. I had a friend who did the Design Influencers Tour, and that actually kicked off a lot of my introductions to a lot of these brands. I think you and I actually even met at the Design Influencers Conference. And it was just putting myself in the room with people who were looking for designers to work with. I mean, a lot of brands, every brand is looking for the next tastemaker, is looking for your point of view, especially, some of the younger designers who don't have a brand developed yet. I think that's a huge opportunity for all of us who are here. With Crystal Rama, I met Christy through the Design Influencers Conference, and she was doing her own PR, and she ended up being pulled into Crystal Rama full time. And so she invited me into their world to start, formalizing a partnership. I'm doing the same with Sub-Zero. I was connected with Nylon Consulting in New York, and they were looking for a designer in New Jersey who had a full Sub-Zero installation, and I happened to check the box for them, and so we're doing a lot of marketing work with them now. So one is just being in the room, but two, it's also, you don't necessarily need your own point of view, you just need to know, who you need to talk to about that. So I would encourage you all to do that.
I think that also shows its relationships. Really is. Even with the brands, like you see, she had like the brand was the exclusive brand you used and you loved before you worked with them. So I think thinking that through also, like on your social media, like if there's a brand that you use a lot and get to know them and tell them you're interested, if you know a lot about what they do and what they sell, you could, that's gold to them. Jennifer, so how do you assess which brands to partner with in your show, like that you want to include in your showroom? And what should young designers look for when choosing vendor relationships?
A lot of the designers that I have in my showroom are people and vendors and products that I've used many times over the last 14 years that I've been doing this. So it is a long-standing thing, right? You want to develop those early relationships and make sure that you stick with them and that you're continuing that relationship. But it is really helpful as a young designer to start off with brands that maybe don't have order minimums or that will meet you where you're at as far as display product, maybe offering you some content or social media or something just to help grow your business, whether it's in sales or in marketing. So it is helpful to explore those different brands, reach out to the marketing firms or marketing people in their firms and see what they can offer you and help you in your business wherever that is, early stages, mid stages, late stages. But a lot of the folks that I partner with have really consistently helped me in a lot of my projects with showing me early launches and being able to introduce me to things that were just about to come on the market so that I had, a little bit more of an edge as a designer in being able to specify them, which was, of course, a symbiotic relationship. Once I start to look at those things early on and being able to tip clients off, hey, X, Y, and Z is coming, it's just a really nice back and forth partnership that we capitalize on.
So it's contractors, brands, colleagues. It's build the relationships. You're never too young to build those relationships and have them carry you and support you. Social media. This is something that you hear about all the time, Jaclyn. I'm bringing it up. Melty bookcase. You had a melty bookcase. You're going to tell us a little about that piece that went viral, got over 23,000 followers from that piece. You said it was a lot of vanity numbers, but what's the real value you got from that moment? And just tell us about the moment.
The moment.
The moment.
So I don't even know how many followers I have now. I don't think it's actually much more than that. Because so I went to Round Top, Texas. I purchased a bookcase that kind of looked like it was melting. I posted a random reel when you could post on Instagram randomly and still get a ton of followers or engagement. This was a couple of years ago. Posted it on a Saturday at 12 o'clock, and I think it got 1.6 million likes and 26 million views. It was crazy. And that has never happened again. But in that moment, we went from, I think it was 7,000 followers to 27,000 followers in a week. So hitting something like that is exciting, but it's also everybody who started following the account was into really cool furniture. And that was just something I found that I thought was interesting. It wasn't necessarily part of my brand. It wasn't part of my marketing. It wasn't something I was selling. It was just something I thought was cool. So I think Instagram virality is fun, but at the end of the day, that number is a vanity number. It's not. If people are following you for a specific reason, for a specific reel, or for something that goes viral, but it's not your core business, it doesn't matter. It's fun and it's cool, and you could use those numbers to your advantage, but it's not necessarily something that I think you should be building your business off of. Simply because I have seen a decline in followers since that time, because I'm not posting about crazy melty bookcases every day. I'm posting about the design work that I'm doing. I'm posting about other things because my real clients don't come from Instagram. My real clients come from referrals. So the number of 26,000 followers is really fun. And what that does is open the door to say to brands, look how many followers I have. Maybe you should partner with me on some stuff. People like to see the number. There's still a lot of engagement at that number, but to sit here and be like, all right, I really want the next reel to hit 26 million views. How do I replicate this? To me, it's just not a smart growth strategy if your core business is interior design.
Do you think it got you thinking about furniture? It's I have an eye. Look at this.
I think that it took the experience of Round Top and the discovery of really cool stuff. It allowed me to take that a little bit more seriously because it was a passion of mine. I thought nobody would care, and I was like, oh wow, people actually do like this kind of stuff. But to sit here and say I have so many people still. This is 4 years later, maybe at this point, they still send me furniture that looks like it's melting because I think it's cool. Those melty earrings, the melty. I still get people sending me
Let's all
DMs.
do that.
Please stop
Let's all
doing
still
that.
do that to her.
But anything that's melted, people would be like, this is your bookcases, and it's cool. But like, I'm not designing furniture that looks like it's melting. It was just one moment in time. So
Everybody
it's
has to
fun,
see it now.
But yeah, I just wouldn't take it as seriously. I think there's a lot of ways to build a brand that doesn't have to just be about follower count. And brands I think there's a collapse of this idea of like the influencer industry. They don't care anymore if you've got 1 million followers because they're looking at your engagement number. So.
Yeah, I'll
Engagement
add
point
to
of view.
that and say that I've got 10% of the followers that Jaclyn has, but I feel like my engagement is consistent. The people that care about what I'm posting and that are seeing my stuff every day is great, and it's so much more important than just having this arbitrary number that doesn't mean anything if nobody is engaging with you and nobody's actually, involved in the stuff that you're doing or caring to that point.
Speaking of point of view and who are we beyond melty bookcases, Jennifer, we talk a lot about voice, right? How are you working through finding your voice? Because your point of view is really important about how you talk about yourself, how you build your confidence. And it could change, right? It changes at all parts of your life. Where are you now, and how are you thinking that through in your work and your presence online?
Yeah, my voice is something that I'm consistently working on developing. I'm a little bit snappier and sassier in real life than I am in a professional setting, as one should be. Yeah. And, in a situational setting, I'm very funny, but in a professional setting, I am business, again, straight shooter, as you said, very straightforward and black and white, which a lot of clients actually really appreciate, right? There's no wishy-wash, there's no gray area. This is what's best for you, this is not. And that can be really helpful. But your voice evolves as your life changes and your projects change and your clientele changes. It's something that you're going to have to navigate. Those waters are constantly moving, and it's something I still work on every single day. And finding that right balance, I don't have that answer yet, but hopefully one day I'll get there.
Yeah, it is figuring out because you want to be authentic to yourself. This word authentic, you'll probably hear about 500,000 times while you're at panels this week. But it's really important. Then how does it tie into your business strategy, right? Where you find that balance. All right. Well, tell us when you do. We're going to keep following you. And when we see you like get all snarky and crazy, we're like, okay, she found it. She's letting the snarky loose.
I'm working on it.
Accelerating success without waiting decades, right? We all want to be successful. You both are successful, right? No imposter syndrome. Let's stop that. You're super successful. Title of this panel is Leading with Vision, Not Just Years. How do you show your clients and peers that your expertise and ideas matter? I know it's like a kind of a big question, right? But it's like, what do you mean, Jennifer?
No pressure.
Yeah, think when you're what's the thing that you do that you love bragging about the most, that you love positioning, putting in front of your client, putting in front of your colleagues, putting in front of this room today? Let us know.
The one thing that jumps to mind for me is this hybrid role between project management and interior design, because you cannot be successful as an interior designer without having some sort of understanding of project management. And that's really something that I try to leverage every day to clients. As this hybrid role where I can wear both hats, it really takes a lot of the pressure off of the GCs, the clients themselves, anyone else that might be on the team, because I'm watching a lot of these things as the project continues to roll. So that is definitely one thing that I feel very, very confident in. And once clients understand how helpful that can be for their project, they really latch on. They're like, oh yes, this makes complete sense. I trust you. I value you. And of course I'll pay, your fee. I'll engage with you. I'll do all of those things because it just makes sense to do so.
Superpowers project management as a superpower.
As this crossover between interior design and PM, definitely.
What about you, Jaclyn?
I think the vintage and antique angle for me is my area of expertise, or at least is becoming that. My clients are like Bitcoin boys and lawyers and managing partners, and I don't know shit about crypto. Like I have a Coinbase
Good,
account,
because there was a
but
problem recently.
I don't open, I don't do any of that. But I can talk circles around my clients around shipping and buying and the process around vintage and antiques. And I think the biggest thing I would say is understand what is your contribution. Like, what is your point of view? We're talking a lot about like opening a studio and, getting into warehousing, but what do you want for your business? I met somebody today who, basically shut everything down, and she's just doing e-design because she's like, I hate project management, but I love, the technical aspect of design. That makes me want to throw up. I would never want to just do that because I love working with clients. As big of a pain in the ass as they can be, I really love to be with my clients, and I love the project management portion of it. So that's what works for me. So what is your contribution? The other panel I was at this morning, somebody said, I would never hire an uncertain surgeon. So think about it. Like, we go to the doctor, or you're getting an operation, and the surgeon's like, well, I don't really know. Maybe you want to cut out your kidney, but we can also look at, think about yourself in the room with your clients and with your contractors and with your architects. Just, you're the designer. Be the designer. Maybe you don't have a point of view right now. You will. You'll get there. But at the end of the day, your superpower is putting together an amazing space, however you do it. So just remember that when you're in those situations and are looking for a confidence booster. Like, you're the expert in design. End of story. So
I think that's what you both do very well. I think your clients are very lucky to have you both because you're definitely advocates for them. And I think that's the other thing, like really, being kick-ass at what you do and advocating for the client, getting the job done, and it shows. And we thank you both for being here. We thank you both for your advice. I would love to open up the floor. These women are very smart. So please ask them very specific, hard technical questions. We're going to ask some really crazy questions. All right, I'm going to come around if anybody has a question. Anything? No? Let's start with confidence one-on-one now. Let's get the confidence ask question. I love it.
Okay, so I would love some advice. I'm very new. I'm actually still a student, but I'm working for a firm, and we're working with a client right now who seems to really second guess our choices. And they want to keep coming back, and they want revisions and revisions and revisions. How do you kind of go through that and handle that? I know obviously kind of having that confidence to stand behind your work, but do you have that? Have you had that experience, and how do you kind of go about that?
all the time. How do they charge? Hourly, or is there flat fee? Do you know anything about that?
We're flat fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I charge flat fee as well. Mm-hmm. So my designs, and I was really bad at this, but I would be very specific around here's your version 1. Great. Here, send me your commentary in the system, email, whatever. Here's your version 2. Remember that version 3, we go hourly. So I have found that with my clients, as long as I continue to remind them hey guys, flat fee, you had a version 1, version 2. We probably don't need a couple more hours on version 3. We could do a version 3 for whatever, but know that the next round, we're probably going to have to charge you, and here's our design fee. And just it's a really hard conversation because when you're a flat fee firm, you do not want to ask for money on an hourly basis, which is why we're a flat fee firm. But you have to sit here and remind them, these were your deliverables. We have checked the box, and now we're moving into unknown territory, version 3. This is hourly for us. And I will guarantee that they stop commenting on your designs, but I don't know how you handle that.
Yeah, I would say definitely put things in contract. If you spell it out and refer back to it, that's going to be really helpful to refresh their memory because it might be a few months since they've signed that contract and, since they've really paid attention to it. So if you're calling things out, referring back to it, that's helpful. But also tracking, if you are doing anything hourly, or even if you're not billing hourly, but you're taking the time to log your hours, make notes as to what you are logging those hours for. So if they have questions, you can refer back to it. On April 5th, I was doing this for 6 hours, and that's part of what you've signed up for, but anything beyond this might be an additional service. So if you can really back up what you're doing and explain things to them, that becomes a really helpful tool.
Thank you. Anybody else? Good questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate the question.
Thanks.
I hope you all are going to have that confidence to go out in the world and charge what you're worth and keep learning. Thank you, everyone.